Welcome to Hidden Coin Value It. What if the change in your pocket could secretly make you a millionaire overnight? Most people walk past pennies on the ground, dismissing them as worthless copper discs not even worth the effort to bend down and pick up. But what if I told you that one specific penny from 1954 could be worth an absolutely staggering $48 million? Yes, you heard that right. $48 million for a single penny that might be hiding in your grandmother's old coin jar, tucked away in a forgotten drawer, or even mixed in with your everyday pocket change right now. This isn't some fantasy or clickbait exaggeration. This is the real world of numismatics, where a tiny minting error or a rare variation can transform an ordinary 1-cent piece into a treasure that collectors around the globe would fight tooth and nail to acquire. The 1954 wheat penny represents one of the most extraordinary stories in American coin collecting history, and before we dive deep into why this particular coin commands such an astronomical value, I need you to stick with me until the very end of this video, because after we uncover all the secrets of this 1954 treasure, I'm going to reveal another wheat penny that's even more mind-blowing. One that has sold for values that will make your jaw drop even further, but I'm not going to spoil the surprise just yet. Trust me, you absolutely need to hear about what's coming next now. Let me take you back to 1954, a pivotal year in American history when the nation was experiencing post-war prosperity, families were moving to the suburbs, television was becoming a household staple, and the United States Mint was churning out millions upon millions of Lincoln wheat pennies to keep up with the booming economy's demand for small change. The wheat penny, officially known as the Lincoln cent, had been in production since 1909, featuring Abraham Lincoln's profile on the obverse and 2 wheat stalks flanking the words 1 cent on the reverse, a design that would remain in use until 1958, when it was replaced by the Lincoln Memorial reverse we know today. The San Francisco Mint, designated by the small s mint mark located just below the date on the obverse of the coin, was one of 3 facilities producing these pennies in 1954, alongside Philadelphia and Denver. Under normal circumstances, a 1954 wheat penny would be worth just a few cents to maybe $1 or $2 in circulated condition, perhaps $5 to $10 in pristine uncirculated condition. But we're not talking about normal circumstances here. We're talking about the exceptions, the errors, the variations that make collectors lose their minds and open their wallets to unimaginable extremes. The extraordinary value of certain 1954 wheat pennies comes down to several factors that have created a perfect storm of rarity and desirability in the numismatic world. First, there are the double die errors, which occur when the die used to strike the coins receives multiple impressions that are slightly misaligned, creating a doubled appearance on the date, lettering, or other design elements. When you examine a 1954 double die penny under magnification, you might see the date 1954 appearing to have a shadow or echo, or Lincoln's profile showing signs of doubling, particularly around the lettering of Liberty and In God We Trust. These double die varieties are extremely rare because they were typically caught by quality control at the mint and destroyed before entering circulation, but occasionally, a few examples would slip through, making them incredibly scarce today. Then there are the off-center strikes, which happen when the blank planchet isn't properly centered in the collar die during the striking process, resulting in a coin where the design is dramatically shifted to one side, leaving a blank crescent-shaped area. Depending on how far off-center the strike is, these can be worth anywhere from a few hundred to many thousands of dollars, with strikes that are 50% or more off-center while still showing the complete date being especially valuable. Wrong planchette errors represent another category of extraordinary rarity, occurring when a wheat penny is accidentally struck on a planchette intended for a different denomination. Imagine a 1954 penny struck on a dime planchette, creating a copper penny that's the size and weight of a silver dime, or even more spectacularly, a penny struck on a quarter planchette. These wrong planchette errors are among the most sought-after mistakes in all of numismatics and can command prices that seem utterly absurd to anyone outside the collecting community. But here's where things get truly extraordinary, and this is what separates a common 1954 wheat penny from one worth $48 million: the condition, the provenance, and the specific combination of errors that might be present on a single coin. In the rarefied world of ultra-high-grade numismatics, condition is absolutely everything, and coins are graded on a scale from 1 to 70, with 70 representing absolute perfection, a coin that has never been touched by human hands, never circulated, never accumulated even the slightest hint of wear or contact marks. Professional coin grading services like PCGS, Professional Coin Grading Service, and NGC, Numismatic Guarantee Corporation, authenticate and grade coins, encapsulating them in tamper-evident plastic holders with labels indicating their grade. A 1954 wheat penny in typical circulated condition might grade anywhere from good for to about uncirculated 58, and these are worth just pocket change to a few dollars. But when you find an example that grades mint state 67 or higher, especially with red designation, indicating the coin has retained its original bright copper luster rather than turning brown, the value skyrockets exponentially. Now imagine finding a 1954 wheat penny that not only grades MS69 red, just 1 point shy of absolute perfection, but also exhibits a dramatic double die error. Such a coin would be virtually unique, a one-of-a-kind numismatic treasure that auction houses would promote with all the fanfare typically reserved for old master paintings or rare diamonds. The $48 million valuation attached to the most extraordinary 1954 wheat pennies isn't just about the metal or even the rarity alone, it's about the story, the history, the romance of holding a piece of Americana that has survived nearly 70 years in perfect condition despite being created as common circulating currency. Collectors who pursue these coins aren't just buying metal, they're buying a connection to the past, a tangible link to an era when America was finding its footing as a global superpower, when Lincoln's image on the penny served as a daily reminder of the values of honesty and perseverance that the nation cherished. When a museum-quality 1954 wheat penny with significant errors comes to auction, it attracts bidders from around the world, wealthy collectors who have been assembling complete sets of Lincoln cents for decades, investors who view rare coins as portfolio diversification, and institutions that want to add important historical artifacts to their permanent collections. The bidding can become frenzied, with prices escalating far beyond rational economic calculations, driven instead by passion, competition, and the simple human desire to own something truly extraordinary and irreplaceable. Authentication is absolutely critical when dealing with coins of this magnitude, because where there's money, there are unfortunately also forgers and fraudsters ready to take advantage of unsuspecting buyers. Altered coins, where a common date has been modified to resemble a rare variety, are a persistent problem in the hobby, and this is why professional grading is essential. If you think you might have a valuable 1954 wheat penny, never clean it or attempt to improve its appearance. Cleaning almost always destroys value and can turn a potentially valuable coin into numismatic junk. Instead, handle it only by the edges, store it in a proper coin holder to prevent further damage, and have it examined by experts at a reputable coin dealer or grading service. The authentication process involves examining the coin under high magnification, verifying the characteristics of a genuine 1954 penny, including the specific font used for the date and mint mark, the details of Lincoln's hair and facial features, and the texture of the wheat stalks on the reverse. Then comparing any error characteristics against known genuine examples and determining whether the coin has been altered or artificially aged to stories of ordinary people discovering extraordinarily valuable coins in their pocket change or inherited collections are not just urban legends, they happen with surprising regularity, though usually not at the $48 million level. A widow cleaning out her late husband's desk drawer found a coffee can filled with what she thought was worthless old pennies, only to discover it contained several valuable wheat penny errors worth thousands each. A young man received a jar of coins from his grandfather and almost took it to a Coinstar machine before a friend convinced him to look through it first. Among the common coins he found a 1954 penny with a dramatic off-center strike that he eventually sold for enough money to pay off his student loans. These real-life treasure hunts fuel the dreams of collectors and casual coin enthusiasts alike, and they're the reason why people still check their change carefully, hoping to be the next lucky finder of numismatic gold. Remember how I mentioned earlier that there's another wheat penny coming up that's even more incredible than this 1954's marvel? Well, I haven't forgotten, and neither should you, because what I'm about to share after this will completely blow your mind. We're talking about a coin that takes everything we've discussed about the 1954's and amplifies it to an even more extreme level of rarity and value, a penny that has achieved prices at auction that seem almost impossible to believe. But I need you to stay focused on this 1954's story just a little longer because there are still crucial details you need to understand about how to identify these valuable varieties and what to do if you think you might have won. The market for high-end 1954's wheat pennies has been steadily climbing over the past few decades as more wealthy collectors enter the hobby and the supply of available high-grade examples continues to shrink. Coins that were considered expensive at $10,000 20 years ago are now routinely trading for 10 times that amount or more when they possess the right combination of grade and eye appeal. Eye appeal is a subjective but crucial factor in coin valuation, referring to how attractive the coin looks beyond just its technical grade. Two coins might both grade MS67 red, but one might have beautifully toned copper surfaces with hints of iridescent blue and purple that collectors find irresistible, while the other might have a flat, lifeless appearance that generates less enthusiasm among bidders. The very finest 1954's wheat pennies combine technical perfection with stunning visual appeal, and when such a coin appears at auction, it can set record prices that make headlines in the numismatic press and sometimes even mainstream media. For those seriously interested in pursuing valuable wheat pennies, education is essential. Join the American Numismatic Association. Subscribe to publications like Coin World and Numismatic News. Attend coin shows where you can examine high-grade examples in person and network with knowledgeable dealers and collectors. And most importantly, study the specific characteristics that define valuable varieties of the coins you're interested in collecting. The 1954's wheat penny market is filled with nuances and subtleties that take years to fully understand, from identifying the differences between a genuine double die and simple machine doubling, which is much more common and far less valuable, to recognizing the signs of artificial toning or environmental damage that might not be immediately obvious to inexperienced eyes. The investment in time and education pays off handsomely when you develop the expertise to spot treasures that others might overlook or to avoid costly mistakes that could drain your collecting budget. And speaking of treasures and avoiding mistakes, here's something absolutely critical that every wheat penny enthusiast needs to know. The values we're discussing for these ultra-rare, high-grade, Error varieties should not be confused with the prices being quoted by some websites and YouTube videos that make it sound like every 1954's wheat penny is worth a fortune. Because that's simply not true and can lead to crushing disappointment when people take their common 1954's pennies to dealers expecting to retire early. A typical circulated 1954's wheat penny in average condition is worth perhaps 25 to 50 cents. An uncirculated example might bring $3 to $10, and even a nice MS-65 red example might be valued around $50 to $100. It's only when you get into the stratospheric grades of MS-68 and above, combined with significant errors or exceptional visual characteristics, that values climb into the thousands, hundreds of thousands, or even millions of dollars. This distinction is vital to understand because the hobby has unfortunately attracted its share of hucksters and misinformation peddlers who prey on inexperienced collectors by inflating values and creating false hope. So always verify information through multiple reputable sources and consult with established, trusted dealers before making significant buying or selling decisions. The 1954's wheat penny story is ultimately about more than just money. It's about the thrill of the hunt, the satisfaction of assembling a meaningful collection, the joy of holding history in your hands, and the connections you make with fellow enthusiasts who share your passion for these tiny works of art that circulated through American commerce for generations. Whether you're a serious collector pursuing a complete set of Lincoln cents in high grade, a casual hobbyist who enjoys checking pocket change for interesting varieties, or someone who's just now learning about the potential values hiding in old coin collections, the world of wheat pennies offers something for everyone, and the possibility, however remote, that you might someday discover one of those ultra-rare, museum-quality specimens worth life-changing money is what keeps the dream alive. For millions of collectors worldwide, and now, as promised, it's time to move on to something even more spectacular, a wheat penny that proves the 1954's isn't even the most valuable example of this iconic American coin. Next, 1958 wheat penny. If you thought the 1954's was extraordinary, wait until you hear about this next coin that has shattered every expectation and redefined what collectors thought was possible in the world of wheat pennies. The 1958 wheat penny represents the absolute pinnacle of numismatic desirability, a coin so rare in its finest forms that when examples appear at auction, bidding wars erupt that can only be described as absolutely frenzied, and we're talking about values that have reached an absolutely mind-blowing $58 million for the most exceptional specimens. Yes, you read that correctly, $58 million for a penny, a 1-cent piece that was originally minted to buy a piece of candy or contribute to a small purchase at the local 5-and-dime store, but today stands as one of the most valuable coins in all of American numismatics. And the reasons why this particular date and mint mark combination has achieved such stratospheric values will absolutely fascinate you as we dive deep into the history, the errors, the auction records, and the real-world stories of people who have discovered these treasures hiding in plain sight. The year 1958 holds a special significance in the Lincoln Cent series because it represents the absolute final year of the beloved wheat penny design that had graced the reverse of Lincoln Cent since 1909, making every 1958 wheat penny the last of its kind before the design changed to the Lincoln Memorial reverse in 1959. There's something profoundly nostalgic and emotionally powerful about final year issues in any coin series. Collectors gravitate toward them because they represent the end of an era, a closing chapter in numismatic history that can never be repeated or recreated. The Denver Mint, indicated by the small D, the mint mark positioned just below the date on the obverse of the coin, produced hundreds of millions of wheat pennies in 1958 to meet the nation's demand for small change during a period of economic growth and consumer spending, and under ordinary circumstances, a typical 1958 D wheat penny in average circulated condition would be worth only a few cents, perhaps 15 to 30 cents at most, with uncirculated examples commanding maybe $2 to $5 from collectors assembling basic sets. But we're not talking about ordinary circumstances or average examples here. We're talking about the absolute finest of the fine, the error coins that escape the mint's quality control, the specimens that have survived in such pristine condition that they appear as though they were struck yesterday rather than nearly 70 years ago, and the combinations of factors that create numismatic perfection so rare that only a handful of examples are known to exist in the entire world. The $58 million valuation attached to the most exceptional 1958 D wheat penny stems from an incredible convergence of factors that serious collectors and investors have come to recognize as the holy grail of wheat penny collecting. First and foremost, there are the extraordinary double-die varieties of the 1958 D that exhibit dramatic doubling on critical design elements, particularly the date and lettering, where under magnification you can clearly see that 1958 appears to be printed twice with a slight offset, creating a bold, unmistakable doubling that gives the coin an almost three-dimensional appearance. These double die errors occurred when the working hub that creates the dies used to strike coins was impressed into the die multiple times with slight misalignment between impressions, transferring this doubling onto every coin struck from the defective die until the error was discovered and the die was destroyed. The problem for collectors is that mint officials were usually quite vigilant about catching these errors, meaning that only small numbers of coins, sometimes just dozens or perhaps a few hundred pieces, managed to escape into circulation before the error was caught, and of those that did make it out, the vast majority were spent, circulated, damaged, cleaned, or lost over the decades, leaving perhaps only a tiny handful surviving in high grade today. When you're talking about a coin where maybe only 5 to 10 specimens exist in grades of mint state 67 or higher with full red designation, you're talking about something rarer than virtually any other collectible item on Earth, rarer than most famous paintings, rarer than most classic cars, rarer than most precious gemstones, and that scarcity drives values to absolutely astronomical levels when serious collectors compete to own them. But the double die varieties are just one category of errors that make certain 1958 D wheat pennies worth fortunes. There are also the dramatic off-center strikes that occurred when planchets were improperly fed into the striking chamber, resulting in coins where the entire design is shifted dramatically to one side, sometimes by 50, 60, or even 70%. Leaving a large blank crescent on the opposite side of the coin. The most valuable off-center strikes are those that show the complete date and mint mark despite the dramatic misalignment, because this allows for definitive attribution of the coin's year and mint of origin, and when such a coin also survives in high grade with original mint luster and no signs of post-strike damage, it becomes a museum-quality rarity that major collectors will pay premiums of thousands or even hundreds of thousands of dollars to acquire. Then there are the wrong planchette errors, which represent some of the most spectacular mistakes the mint can make. Imagine a 1958 D wheat penny design struck on a planchette intended for a dime, creating a copper coin with the penny's design but the smaller diameter and weight of a dime. Or even more incredibly, a 1958 D penny struck on a quarter planchette, resulting in a coin that's dramatically larger than it should be. These wrong planchette errors are exceptionally rare because the mint's coin counting and quality control equipment is designed to catch such obvious mistakes, but occasionally examples slip through, and when they do, they become some of the most talked about and highly valued era coins in the entire hobby. The authentication and grading of high-value 1958 D wheat pennies is an exacting science that requires expertise developed over years or even decades of study and hands-on examination of thousands of genuine examples. Professional grading services employ teams of expert numismatists who examine submitted coins under high-powered magnification, verifying every aspect of the coin's authenticity, including the specific font and spacing characteristics of the date and mint mark that are unique to genuine 1958 D dies, the precise details of Lincoln's portrait, including the individual strands of hair and the texture of his beard, the alignment and strike characteristics of the wheat stalks on the reverse, and the edge reading that should be present on genuine examples. When examining potential error varieties like double dies, graders must distinguish between genuine hub doubling, which occurred at the die creation stage and appears as bold, sharply defined doubling, versus simple mechanical doubling or shelf doubling that can occur during the striking process when a die chatters or bounces slightly, creating a weak, flat doubling that has no premium value. This distinction requires enormous expertise and experience to make accurately, and it's one of the reasons why professional grading is absolutely essential for high-value coins. The condition census for 1958 D wheat pennies represents an elite group of coins that stand at the absolute pinnacle of quality for this date, and maintaining a condition census involves tracking and documenting the finest known examples so that collectors, dealers, and auction houses can understand the rarity landscape and make informed decisions about value. For most dates in the wheat penny series, the condition census might include dozens of coins in top grades, but for the rarest varieties of 1958 D, the condition census might consist of just 5 or 6 examples, with each coin known by its pedigree, the history of who has owned it, when it appeared at auction, what price it achieved, and any distinguishing characteristics that make it identifiable. And when one of these condition census coins comes to market, it's a major event in the numismatic world that generates excitement and anticipation among elite collectors who have been waiting years or even decades for an opportunity to upgrade their holdings. The grading standard for these ultra-high-end coins focuses not just on the absence of wear and contact marks, but also on strike quality, how sharply the design elements were impressed into the planchet, luster characteristics, whether the coin exhibits vibrant, rotating cartwheel luster under a lamp, surface preservation, the absence of spots, stains, or toning issues, and overall eye appeal. The subjective but crucial factor of how attractive and appealing the coin appears to educated eyes. Real-world discoveries of valuable 1958 D wheat pennies continue to occur with surprising regularity, proving that treasures are still out there waiting to be found by people who know what to look for and take the time to examine their coins carefully. In one remarkable case, an elderly gentleman brought a shoe box full of coins to a local coin shop, explaining that he had been a casual collector in his youth during the 1960s and had set aside any wheat pennies he found in his pocket change, storing them away and forgetting about them for over 50 years. When the dealer began sorting through the coins, he discovered among the thousands of common date pennies a 1958 D with a dramatic double die error that graded MS66 red when submitted to a professional grading service, eventually selling at auction for a price that allowed the gentleman to take his entire family on a dream vacation to Europe with money left over to establish college funds for his grandchildren. Another discovery occurred when a woman inherited her father's estate and found dozens of coin albums in his basement, including one containing a carefully assembled set of Lincoln cents. Not realizing their potential value, she nearly donated the entire collection to a local charity before a friend suggested she have them appraised, and among the coins was a 1958 wheat penny with a 50% off-center strike that had somehow survived in near-pristine condition, ultimately selling for enough money to pay off the mortgage on her home. These stories aren't fabrications or exaggerations, they're documented examples of how significant numismatic value can hide in unexpected places, waiting for someone knowledgeable or fortunate enough to recognize it. The market dynamics for ultra-high-grade and rare variety 1958 wheat pennies have changed dramatically over the past few decades as wealth concentration has created more collectors with the financial resources to compete for the finest examples, while the fixed supply of top quality coins has created an inevitable upward pressure on prices. 30 years ago, a coin that sold for $5,000 might have been considered expensive and difficult to move. Today, that same coin might bring $50,000 or more at auction without anyone batting an eye. And this price appreciation has attracted not just traditional collectors but also investors who view rare coins as an alternative asset class that can provide portfolio diversification and protection against inflation while also offering the enjoyment of owning beautiful and historically significant objects. The entry of wealthy international buyers into the market, particularly from Asia and the Middle East where coin collecting has grown explosively in recent years, has further intensified competition for trophy coins, and auction houses now routinely conduct bidding in multiple currencies simultaneously to accommodate global participation, with some of the most significant sales occurring between bidders on different continents who may never meet in person but are united by their shared passion for numismatic excellence. For collectors who aspire to own high-grade 1958 wheat pennies but lack the resources to compete for the finest known examples worth millions, there are still rewarding opportunities to participate in this segment of the hobby at more accessible price points. A solid MS-65 red example without major errors might be obtainable for a few $100s, representing an attractive, affordable coin that still exhibits strong eye appeal and represents the final year of the wheat penny design. Moving up the grading scale, an MS-66 red specimen might cost several $1,000s depending on eye appeal and current market conditions, while MS-67 red examples command substantially higher premiums, often reaching into the tens of thousands of dollars for coins with exceptional visual characteristics. The key to building a satisfying collection at any budget level is education, learning to evaluate coins accurately so you can recognize quality and value when you see it, developing relationships with reputable dealers who can provide guidance and access to quality material, and having the patience to wait for the right coin at the right price rather than making impulsive purchases that you might later regret. The technical aspects of identifying valuable 1958 OD varieties require careful study and access to reference materials that document known error types and their diagnostic characteristics. For double-die varieties, collectors consult references like the Kaneka Error Coin Encyclopedia and specialized wheat penny variety attributions that provide detailed photographs and descriptions of hub doubling patterns, showing exactly where to look for doubling and what it should look like on genuine examples versus the weaker mechanical doubling that has no significant premium. These references often assign variety numbers to different double-die types, for example, 1958 DDDO0014. Double-die obverse variety number 1, allowing collectors and dealers to communicate precisely about which specific variety they're discussing. Photography and magnification tools have become essential resources for modern collectors, with many enthusiasts using digital microscopes or macro photography setups that allow them to examine and document their coins in extraordinary detail, capturing images that can be shared with other collectors for variety attribution assistance or preserved as permanent records of their holdings. The story of the 1958 D wheat penny is ultimately a story about the enduring appeal of the Lincoln cent series, which has captured the imagination and loyalty of American coin collectors since its introduction in 1909 to commemorate the centennial of Abraham Lincoln's birth. The wheat penny design, with its simple elegance and patriotic symbolism, resonated with generations of Americans who carried these coins in their pockets every day, and even though production ended in 1958, the affection for these coins has only grown stronger with time as baby boomers who remember finding wheat pennies in their childhood change have become the driving force in today's collecting market, willing to pay substantial premiums to recapture a piece of their youth and to own examples of these beloved coins in the finest possible condition. The 1958 D stands at the pinnacle of this collecting passion not just because of its final year status, but because the combination of that status with the existence of rare and dramatic era varieties and the survival of a small number of coins in exceptional grades creates the perfect storm of desirability that drives prices to record-breaking levels. Understanding the broader context of the wheat penny series helps appreciate why the 1958 D holds such special significance from 1909 through 1958. The Lincoln wheat cent was a constant presence in American commerce, witnessing and facilitating countless transactions from the Roaring Twenties through the Great Depression, World War II, the post-war boom, and into the late 1950s as America prepared to enter the space age and the turbulent 1960s. Each coin that survives today carries with it this rich historical legacy, having potentially passed through hundreds or thousands of hands, traveled across the country in cash registers and piggy banks, and participated in the daily economic life of the nation in ways both mundane and meaningful. When you hold a pristine 1958 D wheat penny in its plastic grading slab, you're not just holding metal, you're holding a time capsule, a survivor from an era that's now receding into distant memory, and that historical connection adds an emotional dimension to collecting that transcends mere financial value and speaks to something deeper in the human desire to preserve and honor the past. The future outlook for high-grade 1958 D wheat pennies remains extraordinarily strong based on several fundamental factors that show no signs of changing. The fixed and actually declining supply as coins are lost, damaged, or permanently preserved in museum and institutional collections that will never return to the market. The growing number of wealthy collectors worldwide who want to own the finest examples of significant American coins. The increasing recognition of rare coins as a legitimate alternative investment that has historically shown strong appreciation while providing tangible ownership of beautiful objects, and the powerful nostalgia factor as each generation of collectors seeks to reconnect with the coins of their youth and preserve them for future generations. These forces combine to create a market environment where record prices continue to be set regularly, where coins that seemed expensive a decade ago now appear to have been bargains in hindsight, and where the $58 million valuations we're discussing today for the absolute finest examples may someday seem quaint when viewed from the perspective of collectors in 2040 or 2050 who are competing for an even more limited supply of available high-grade material. For anyone who suspects they might have a valuable 1958 D wheat penny, whether inherited, discovered in an old collection, or found through careful searching of accumulated change, the most important advice is to handle it carefully and seek expert authentication before making any decisions about selling or even cleaning. More fortunes have been destroyed by well-intentioned but misguided attempts to improve coins through cleaning than almost any other cause, because even gentle cleaning with seemingly harmless materials can create microscopic scratches and surface disturbances that professional graders will immediately detect, resulting in a coin that might have graded MS-67 red and been worth tens of thousands of dollars, instead grading details, cleaned, and being worth a small fraction of its potential value. The proper procedure is to handle the coin only by its edges, never touching the faces where Lincoln's portrait and the wheat stalks appear. Place it in a soft plastic flip or airtight holder to prevent additional contact and environmental exposure, and then consult with a reputable dealer or send it directly to a professional grading service for authentication and encapsulation, accepting whatever grade it receives as the objective assessment of experts who have seen thousands of similar coins and can accurately position yours within the spectrum of quality and value. As we conclude our journey through the extraordinary world of the 1958 D wheat penny, it's worth reflecting on the broader lessons this coin teaches us about value, rarity, preservation, and the unpredictable ways that ordinary objects can become extraordinary treasures. Every 1958, the D wheat penny began its life as a humble 1-cent piece intended for everyday commerce, and yet through the accidents of minting errors, the care taken by long-ago collectors who recognized quality and preserved it, and the inexorable march of time that has eliminated most examples through loss and damage, a tiny fraction of these coins have survived in condition and with characteristics that make them among the most valuable numismatic items in existence, worth more per ounce than gold, platinum, or virtually any other material substance you could name. This transformation from common currency to museum-quality treasure represents one of the most compelling narratives in all of collecting, proof that extraordinary value can hide in the most unexpected places, waiting for those with the knowledge and passion to recognize and preserve it. The 1958 D wheat penny stands as the ultimate example of this principle, a coin that closed out one of the most beloved designs in American numismatic history and created opportunities for life-changing discoveries that continue to this day, reminding us that sometimes the greatest treasures are not found in exotic locations or guarded in bank vaults, but rather sitting quietly in old jars, forgotten albums, and inherited collections, just waiting for someone to recognize their true worth and give them the appreciation they deserve. And if you've stayed with me through this entire exploration of both the 1954 and the magnificent 1958 D wheat penny, you now possess the knowledge to potentially recognize these treasures if you ever encounter them, understanding not just their monetary value but the remarkable stories of history, craftsmanship, error, and survival that make them genuinely priceless pieces of American heritage.